Keto for Life.
Yeah.
Mark Sisson, Brad Kearns, we're here. We've been doing this for 11 years, and here comes another book. So exciting.
Yeah.
Every time we say this will be about a 6-month project, and we're off by order of half, and it's a year-long project. And I just want to give credit to the incredible team of people at Park Fine and Harmony Books and our research staff and all the hard work that goes into this beautiful finished project, if we do say so ourselves. It's so different than a YouTube video and a blog post and all the content that we're getting slammed with every day. So I think we really wanted this thing to be, you called it, an owner's manual for probably the ultimate goal of longevity.
Right. And I think the team effort is important because you bounce ideas off of people, and some people have a concept of what the world wants to hear and see, and others have other ideas. And my idea here for a longevity book was based on live awesome, right? My idea was to how do we craft a life that allows us to get the most amount of enjoyment, pleasure, contentment, and fulfillment, satisfaction out of every moment we possibly can. However, in order to do that, you have to be healthy, and you have to be mindful, and you have to have, you have to get your sleep in order. And so there's all these things that come together to create that end result of an awesome life. And I think that was sort of the impetus for Keto Life, a longevity book, Keto for Life, that was all-encompassing and had almost by its very nature had to be like an owner's manual.
Right, and the other thing you want to do is walk your talk. And so when you were first presented with this wonderful opportunity to bring another book, your first reaction was like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
what
was going on
so at that point in my life, it was like the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? I had a very successful food company that I was growing and spending a lot of time with. I had a failed restaurant venture that was halfway through its failure cycle and was causing me a lot of grief. I had a major incident with the medical system that almost killed me in a routine prostate exam. I had some, I passed out I went to Greece, and for some reason I'd been extending myself and burning the candle at both ends, and I literally passed out for a second, but it was enough, like it was a wake-up call, like, wait a minute, I'm trying to extract, all the marrow from life here, and in so doing, I'm overextending myself, and it's actually, it's having the exact opposite of the intended effect. Instead of extracting all and getting all the greatest amount of enjoyment and fulfillment, contentment, and pleasure, it was causing me a lot of grief and sort of guilt and ill health and other things, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not the right picture. This is not who I am. I'm supposed to be this guy that's walking the talk and doing this. And it was the notion of doing a book that I finally said, wow, I have to listen to my own advice. I have to settle down. I have to pivot where I need to pivot and make the changes where I need to change. And so for me, the process in writing the book brought me back to center and got me realigned with all of the purpose of my life.
Well, this seems like a huge issue today, what you described, because we're affluent society, and a segment of it is doing wonderfully well and succeeding in so many areas, and we have so much knowledge and know how to apply it to live this incredible life and go get your cryotherapy and your Theragun massage appointments and go to the wonderful progressive food stores and get the grass-fed everything. All of a sudden, it becomes a stressful event just to try to keep up with, and then we go to that disease state as quantified by Dr. Ronish Sinha, one of our authors, FOMO.
Yeah.
As good as you're doing,
fear of missing out.
Someone else is posting a thing that's kicking your butt on an even higher quantified level.
Yeah. No, it's a real issue. There's so many nuances to this idea of living a better life, and some of it has to do with the ability to acknowledge your current situation and what's going on. And are you in good health, or are you faking it? Are you think you're in good health? Are you stress-free, or are you just telling people you're stress-free? Are you being productive at work, or are you just thinking?
Busy.
Busy, exactly. Are you non-judgmental of those around you, or are you actually, keeping score? I mean, a lot of these things come together, and as a package, we look at our lives and go, how do I reconcile all of these different elements, all these different nuances, all these different aspects of my life to the point where I feel good now and every moment. We spend so much time living in the past and regretting things we did or said or whatever wrong moves we think we made, and we also spend a lot of time thinking about the future and fearing the future, and we don't focus enough on what's right in front of us, right? And that's really what the concept of longevity is based on. It's based on being in this moment now and being healthy now and present now and enjoying this moment now. And if you put enough of those together for a long period of time, next thing you know, you're 85, 90, 95, you have good health, you're mobile, you have access to your thoughts, and that's sort of the definition of quality of life.
That's interesting. That wasn't on our notes to talk about, but I like that angle where you're talking about basically backing into longevity rather than obsessing about it and worrying.
Yeah.
And we talked about biology of belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and some of his insights that your thoughts manifest your cellular function at all times. So if you're really stressing about that Wi-Fi router giving off electromagnetic signals that might compromise your health, that thought about the worry of the harmful effects of the thing you just ate because you indulge on a cheesecake.
No, it's more insidious than the actual event.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wove a lot of these things into the story and tried to create this presentation that was really much broader than the things you've ever talked about in other books. I think we should get into the, first of all, the evolved definition of longevity and the 3 ages rather than the just one age that we seem to be obsessed about, which is by scientific validation the least important.
Yeah.
So we have our chronological age.
Yep.
How many birthdays we've had.
Yeah.
You've had a few, I've had a few. They're adding
How many times around the sun we've made it? Yeah.
How many moons has it been since the year of heavy rains when you were born?
Yeah.
Tell me about the other 2 actual verified definitions of age.
So we can talk about biological age, and biological age is sort of the kind of one of the true metrics of the physiology. How healthy are you? We can measure it in, for instance, telomeres. In some cases, we can see the telomere length and determine. That's sort of the new quantified, biohacking measurement. You can get your telomeres measured, and the
telomere is the ending point of a cell.
Yeah, it's like the wrappings on the end of a shoelace or something like that keep the chromosomes. You lose a little bit every time it replicates, and at some point it stops, and that's the determination of how many cell divisions you can undergo. And so every cell has sort of a finite number of divisions it can undergo in one's lifetime, and so you don't want to speed that process up. You want to slow it down.
And you speed it up doing all kinds of crazy stuff like going on the road with the band and not getting enough sleep for 7 years. You actually see in laboratory study the rock star effect is the telomeres shorten.
Right.
Or you can actually lengthen them with healthy lifestyle practices. So you can literally reverse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's one metric. Now we can also talk about grip strength being another metric of biological age and sort of a predictor of how long you're going to live or how old you are, and that is one small subset of a general concept of strength that would involve we also might look at how much of your body weight can you deadlift. That's another metric that gets used in, say, track and field, where the stronger you are, the faster your predicted 100-meter sprint time would be in terms of measuring hex bar deadlift, for instance. So we have a lot of these metrics that we can measure biological age. Another one would be your mile time. In fact, some people think that that's the single greatest sort of determining factor in where you are on the spectrum of having aged or not. can you maintain a decent pace running a mile? Because that does combine strength and aerobic capacity and balance and endurance and a lot of other factors that would factor in there. So biological age is an interesting way to look at aging, for sure. And then the third way is the third component of this would be your psychological age. That's my favorite. I have used to tell people for the longest time, I have I'm 66, I have the body of a 28-year-old, but I have the mind of a 17-year-old. And I try to surround myself with young people. Not because, I'm trying to, extract any sort of energy from them. I just like being around younger people. I like the energy. I like the mindset. I play games with young. I mean, that's the reason how I'm able to do that is I play ultimate frisbee with young folks, right? So that to me is like I'm a kid again. I'm playing. I'm outside. I'm having all these childlike, playful experiences that people my age probably don't do, and some people in society would say you shouldn't be doing that. You're too old for that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just the right age to be doing this stuff.
Well, I guess there's no games available for the 60-plus division in Ultimate Frisbee because it's like the attrition. You're probably the best player over 60 in the entire state of Florida and maybe the only one.
Yeah.
Because the game is so intense.
Yeah.
But that's what's so wonderful about preserving biological age or separating it
Right.
to where I know I'm 54 years old, but if I can reach a varsity high school time in track,
Yeah.
then my biological age is literally something different than my chronological age. Jack LaLanne being the best example,
Sure.
he set the world record at age 42 for doing 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 pull-ups in an hour and 22 minutes.
Yep.
So he was off the charts for any human of any age. So you could certainly conclude that his biological age was 21 or whatever the peak age that we want to talk
Right.
about is.
Right. Yeah. So now the least significant of all these is your chronological age. It's like it doesn't matter. When they say age is just a number, it's just a number. But if you take biological age and psychological age, now you can sort of blend the two together and come up with what you not only how do you feel now, but you can predict sort of what your life is going to look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah, that was what was so cool about seeing that research from the Cooper Institute in Dallas, the famous aerobics founder, and Texas A&M was in there too, where they tested these people at age 50 in the mile. And it was strongly predictive of their ability or their chances of living to age 85 and being healthy at that time, more so than any blood work or all the other things, the scientific stuff from the laboratory. So newsflash, the exceptional category for males age 50, 8-minute mile, females 9-minute mile, and the needs to improve or increased disease risk and mortality risk was if you can't break 12 as a male or can't break 13 as a female. And anyone want to scoff watching? 12 is you're hustling. You're moving across
still
the
working.
track.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go out there and test it. See if you can at least break 12 and break 13.
Yeah.
And if not, then we got work to do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're correlated. You made this motion with your hands. If you have a nice, youthful biological age, and that is actually a comparison of the norm of your chronological age. So it's related to something.
Sure, it's got to be against the population database.
But that's strongly correlated with your psychological age if you feel young.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, they almost, they're synergistic in that regard. The younger, you think you are, probably the more apt you are to undertake certain training regimens to get you into the next level, right? And vice versa. As you get more and more fit, you start feeling younger and younger. There are people who I've dealt with and I've coached over the years who are in their 50s and 60s think they're on the decline. They think all I got to do is, I got to stem the decline and I hope it's not a painful, slippery slope down. But if you can get them to adjust their eating, start to become metabolically flexible, energy levels increase, then they start to feel more like working out, inflammation decreases, now they feel even more like working out and they get stronger, and as a result of getting stronger, they get more energetic and they feel like playing more. So all of the different components come together, and they start. Now you've engaged in play. You've achieved metabolic flexibility. Your brain is working better. Now you're more mentally flexible in your thought processes. Your energy levels are higher, and it just becomes this great sort of self-fulfilling prophecy about achieving youthfulness in your 5th, 6th, and 7th decades, simply because you shifted not only how you thought about things, but actually took a look at your diet, achieved metabolic flexibility, rework your sleep, your sun exposure, the amount of play you engage in, and things like that. It's such a compelling argument for anybody who's in not very good shape in their 40s or 50s to think that I could improve for the next 2 decades, not just stem the decline,
right,
but actually improve in my deadlift strength, in my push-ups, in my pull-ups, in my air squats, in my mile time, and not just improve next year or the next year, but literally to see in front of you the possibility for improvement for two more decades before you even have to start to think about, well, then it'll start to fall off.
Yeah, what's great now with the exchange of information is we have role models doing it all over the place. I saw a guy on YouTube, or someone sent me the link, this guy Charles Alley, 70 years old, and he broke 60 seconds in the 400 meters, which is my current goal.
That's incredible.
And I'm wondering if I can do it because I'm 54 now and I'm slower than when I was 50.
Yeah.
Then you watch the video and
Yeah.
you're like, that's incredible. But that shift in belief system, the way you describe it, of throwing in more play, cleaning up your diet, of course that's going to push you there
Yeah.
by default. But the easiest and the biggest shortcut in the entire book, on page 178, I don't know what page, but if you change your self-perception about aging,
Yeah.
you will take 7 years, you'll add 7 years to your lifespan,
Yeah.
just by changing your self-perception. And when I engage in casual conversation with people, it takes me back to the first frickin' page 1 of the Primal Blueprint
Yeah.
a long time ago, when you said your genes are not your destiny.
Yeah.
But we hear all the time people verbalizing, well, both my parents were gone in their 70s, so I'm not sure about my retirement fund. Maybe I'll spend them all now. People are already setting themselves up due to the belief
Yeah.
based on their parents. I'm like, well, your parents smoked and you don't. Does that matter?
Yeah.
But we still haven't escaped as a society from this rigid mindset.
No, it's actually quite disturbing to me that so many people still get caught up in that thought process that I'm basically reliving my parents' life. As you said, my dad died of a heart attack at 55. My uncle died at 62. I'm 57. I'm living on borrowed time. No, not necessarily. You've got so much
I guess
potential.
it's borrowed.
Well, but there's so much potential, and I go back to one of the concepts I've talked about over the years: organ reserve. One of the reasons we lift weights is to build up not just metabolic flexibility and metabolic efficiency, but to build up a sort of a vital capacity. We talk about lean muscle being sort of a determinant of the health of the overall body. Why would muscle mass be that determinant? Well, because every organ in the body kind of exists to support muscle mass. Your brain tells the muscles what to do and where to go and how to move through space, but the heart has to supply blood, the lungs have to breathe in the oxygen to put it into the blood so the heart can pump it. The liver has to clean out the toxins, has to develop a system for delivering some of the energy substrates like ketones and fatty acids. The kidneys have to clear out toxins, and all these things work synergistically, but they also work based on the demands that muscle mass creates. So the more muscle you have as you get older, the more you continually at request of your different organs to keep the pace going. The converse of that is if you start to slow down in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and you stop working out, your muscles atrophy, then the heart goes, I don't have to beat that hard or that fast because I don't have to keep up. The lungs go, well, I don't have to breathe that deeply. I don't have to inspire that much. The liver says, I can pretty much get away with 15% of the work that I was doing before. And the next thing you know, the body, all the organs of the body kind of match the level of requested output of the muscles. And so the body atrophies over time. Now, what happens when you get to be 60, 70, 80 years old, one of the things that happens is you lose bone density. Look, if you do a lot of weight-bearing activity, your muscles get bigger. The muscles pull on the attachments, the insertions of the bone. The bone has to get stronger. That's the framework that holds us together. Well, if the muscles aren't working, the bones go, hey, I don't have to be, I don't need to start using precious resources to get stronger and more dense. And so the bones get brittle. Now, what happens? You get up in the middle of the night, you go take a leak, you trip over the cat, you break your hip. Well, that's bad enough, but now you wind up in the hospital and you're lying in bed and now you get pneumonia. Or I'm not suggesting that you will automatically, but this is how a lot of people
C. diff.
Yeah,
something
whatever.
Terrible.
Something terrible. And then this cascade starts to happen where now your organs can't keep up with the demands of this new highly stressful demand of being sick, of having sputum in the lungs because of pneumonia, and you can't cough it out, and the heart can't pump enough to overcome the loss of oxygen. There's no reserve. There's no reserve there. So I've said for the longest time, I don't think people die of old age. People die of loss of organ reserve, and it typically falls down. It comes down to what the weakest link, the weakest organ is. All of this can be bypassed. All of this can be overcome through a process whereby you are active, you're eating properly, you're active, you're building muscle, you're maintaining muscle, and you're enjoying life in the process.
Yeah, I think it all starts with the mindset and just sitting here watching a video, listening to a podcast, realizing that, for example, a great quote from Dr. Art Devaney, one of the mentors of the primal paleo movement, he said, aging is not normal, it's cellular damage from unrepaired accumulation of cellular damage in the body. But we sit here and we kind of envision what's it like in 160s and 170s, and now life expectancy in the USA, we're kicking butt. We're 35th in the world. I think right behind Costa Rica, who kicked our ass in World Cup soccer too. But we think 82 is expected demise. Yeah. And so 60s, 70s, we know that we're going to just have that slow, steady decline. Now, we know that the human organs will wear out at about 120 years from routine use and oxidative stress of being on the planet that long.
That seems to be the maximum useful
People
span.
are talking about 180, good for them. We'll check back in about 120 years. But for now, we can perhaps understand that human lifespan potential is around 120. Even with these people that didn't have any biohacking or primal collagen.
And actually, especially with those people.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, they just mind their own business and had that wonderful mindset that every day was another gift to awaken to. Yeah. Right. So if we could extend out, I mean, this is my personal view as I'm trying to extend out to form the belief that 123 is going to be my lifespan, easy as 1, 2, 3, breaking the record because it's 122 now. But just by starting there with that insight and then thinking, wow, if I keep loading my skeleton with weight, I'm not going to suffer a loss of bone density and so on down the line.
No, I mean, I remember distinctly in my 20s thinking to myself, I want to show people what 70 is supposed to look like. In my 20s, I started thinking that thought, and so
that's setting himself up.
So I've carried that thought through my whole life and my whole career. That 70 doesn't have to be this sort of decrepit kind of quasi on your way down state.
You're looking up the age group records at 10K.
I don't. One of the reasons I've been able to to do as well as I have at the current age that I am is I'm not that competitive anymore. I was telling somebody the other day, I had my last, 40 years ago was my last good marathon. And I retired at
the time still
at 20.
Stands strong,
It's still a strong time. It was faster than the world record when I was born. So that was one of my goals as an athlete. But I sort of recognized that my leaving that world of competitive endurance athletics at the age of 26 was what put me on a track to a much more balanced, enjoyable lifestyle. I didn't have the wear and tear on my hips and knees that a lot of my contemporaries had. I didn't have the AFib, the heart attack, or it's like so many people in our endurance community have had massive cardiac issues because of training too hard.
Too hard, too many years.
Too many years. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to recognize early on that I wanted to shift away from being the best in the world at what I was doing to being a person who just wanted to kind of extract the most out of life at every point along the way, and absolutely be competitive, but not on a global world-class scale, but just at a local ultimate Frisbee scale.
Well, like Seth Godin says, you want to be the best in your own world, which is the best guy who can compete with people half his age in ultimate Frisbee, literally in the highest level game.
Right.
And so I've seen you, because I've played in these matches, believe me, people, you're extremely competitive out there, but it's an age-appropriate, lifestyle-appropriate goal, but you have to keep that fight up. And I saw that with my father, who left us this year after 97 incredible years, and he was playing golf all the way up till, he played golf until he was 95 years old, and he's shooting in the 80s as a 95-year-old guy and hitting the ball straight and far. And he'd get off the course after a round that he deemed to be terrible, and he was disgusted with his performance because he shot an 84 and he should have shot a 79. And I'm like, Dad, you're 95 years old. But his mindset was like, forget that. I missed 3 putts on the back 9 that I should have made. And so I think that's what we want to harness, is like this fighting spirit for throughout life until the very end. Great quote in one of Deepak Chopra's books about there's a longevity pocket in the Caucasus Mountains in Russia, and there was a 113-year-old lady tending to her garden when the interviewers came to see her, and they asked her, maybe through a translator, why isn't someone helping you with your garden? And she looked at him and said, because it's my garden. Not even the thought, like, do I need someone else to help? It's my garden. Oh, precious. I guess we should talk about the book Keto for Life and the 4 pillars of longevity. So you've talked so much about diet and keto and eating the primal paleo way rather than the standard American diet way. And I think we both had this sentiment that, like, what more else can we write about in that realm? Of course, there is some more to write about, and there always is. But I think that was the general starting point for this book, was we had to expand the conversation out, because diet's just a little slice of the pie.
Well, but let's not overlook that part, because it's kind
of the portal.
It's the portal. It is. It's really the gateway to the rest of it. I think if you can't get your diet right, you're sort of, there's a lot of maybe things you can try to do appropriately, but they won't have the benefit.
Just push pause on your screen. There's a little pause button, and don't just forget it. If you're going to go eat Burger King after this, forget it. Okay.
So we talk about the first pillar being establishing metabolic flexibility, and that really has become more and more recognized by science in the last decade as the essential element of good health, which is to be able to derive energy from your own stored body fat as often as you need to and as often as you want to, and not be reliant upon refeeding carbohydrate every 3 or 4 hours all day long, every day. So we really dispelled, starting 15 years ago, we dispelled this notion of multiple small meals a day, or even 3 square meals a day. What we've come to is a point where we can literally, with a very easy entry level, we can coach people to become better at burning off their own stored body fat and rely on less and less food. And people might say, well, why would I want to do that? I love to eat. Well, what if your appetite and your hunger and your cravings sort of disappeared and you didn't feel compelled to have to eat? What if 1 bite or 2 bites of cheesecake or chocolate cake was all you needed to get sort of that sense of like, oh my God, this is fabulous, but now I don't need more? What if you woke up in the morning and you had all the energy you needed and you didn't feel compelled to eat? And in fact, what if eating 3 meals a day just felt like it was burdening you, it was just too much food? The freedom that comes with that is incredible. But that also establishes a baseline for you to move through the world with your own sort of energy source around with you, carrying it around with you all the time, and not have to be thinking about timing of meals, and I have to have breakfast, and I have to have lunch at noon, and I have to have dinner at 6. So we kind of put all of that aside, and we say, look, let's enjoy every bite of food we ever eat. That's critical. That's like my number one component. I want you to enjoy every single bite of food you put in your mouth. However, let's figure out what that looks like in terms of reconfiguring your body so that you derive as much energy as you can from the fat on your plate of food, the fat on your thighs or hips, the glycogen in your muscles, the glucose in your bloodstream, the pasta, the carbohydrate. Well, not pasta. Let's leave that out. But the carbohydrate on your plate of food, the ketones that your liver's making, to be able to access energy from all these different substrates because you spent a few weeks, just a few weeks, training your body to build the metabolic machinery to be able to access all these different energy sources rather than just be relying on eating every couple of hours and having to have carbohydrate at every meal. It's the most freeing aspect of this whole keto strategy. So yeah, so the first pillar is like, okay, let's get that dialed in, let's get metabolic flexibility handled, and now we can sort of, having done that, now we can move on to the next pillars.
Yeah, I think what's cool about that message, and I think you coined that term, although people are using it left and right, so maybe someone else is saying they coined metabolic flexibility, but it kind of transcends the increasing controversy and nitpicking and infighting among progressive health enthusiasts. So if you're a whole food plant-based person that doesn't want to eat that chicken we just had because the chicken has a conscience,
you can still be metabolically
flexible. You can still get there.
Yeah.
You can be hardcore nose-to-tail carnivore. Boy,
Yeah.
that's movement's coming up like crazy,
Yeah.
and these plants are poisonous now that we had on our salad. Whatever's going on and whatever
Yeah.
your belief system is and your personal experimentation leads you to, it seems like the ultimate destination for any health enthusiast.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's really the one of the take-home messages from this book that we hadn't really focused on in previous books is that you can achieve this metabolic flexibility through means of eating other than primal or other than being a meat-centric kind of program.
And I suppose if you're a dirty keto or doing things the wrong way, and still ingesting those nasty industrial seed oils that compromise your body's ability to burn stored energy,
Yep.
then you're getting off track because you're eating, not nutritious foods. On the other hand, your big thing that you've been recommending for people is you spend as much time fasted as you can or want to or feel good at, comfortable with, and there's nothing better you can do for your health.
Well, as we'll see in the book, and now it gets reaffirmed on a daily basis. All the good things, as Art Devaney would say, all the good things that happen to the human body happen when you're not eating, right? So the longer you can go without eating, the better it is. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone spend much time being ravenous, but one of the things that happens when you establish metabolic flexibility is hunger, appetite, and cravings. They dissipate. I mean, to the point that I have friends that eat one meal a day. You know several of them, and they're not hungry beyond that. They got I got stuff to do. I want to play. I want to work. I want to be productive. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to hang out with my family. So meals sort of get in the way of some of these people. So they have one meal a day, and it's a beautiful. Typically, it's dinner, and it's a sumptuous, fabulous dinner. And I'm always blown away by the sort of concept of well, I have to be mindful about what I eat for dinner. Because I used to think, well, that means, you can't be a glutton. You have to be mindful that you don't overeat at dinner. And the answer is no, I have to be mindful that I eat enough. Because I'm just, I love food, but I'm not ravenous anymore. I'm not hungry. I don't feel compelled to eat, everything that's on my plate. So that's a major benefit of metabolic flexibility, is this ability to say, some days I can have 3 meals, some days I can have no meals. Some days I can have 2 meals. Some days I can have a big meal and a small meal. I mean, it's like, we call it fractal eating, but you can just sort of figure out intuitively what your body is needing at this point in time, and it's a great skill set to have.
It's also great because I think personally I'm getting tired of the constant obsession with dietary strategies. And it feels, and we've done so many macronutrient calculations for our readers to see just what the pie chart looks like.
Plug the formula in, right. Yeah.
And it's like, if that's what you need to get started and get motivated and stay focused, that's great. But personally, just to be able to say, hey, I'm a fractal eater. Today I did this. Tomorrow, I don't know, maybe I'll do that. And not suffer any ill effects from it.
Sure, and not obsess about it.
Right. Dr. Tommy Wood had a great line. He says, if you have that metabolic flexibility and you're healthy, baseline healthy, not leaky gut or things going on in the background,
Yeah.
you should be able to take a hit of anything, including bombing some ice cream.
Yeah.
He lives in Seattle, and they have the best street homemade ice cream. Unbelievable. These places all over. So when I go there, I pound the ice cream. No ill effects. Same with fasting for a long time, except if you're traveling to Greece and are stressed when you get on the plane, and you can overdo things.
Sure.
But I think the most important thing to take out of what you said, especially if you're just getting into this and just finding this video and the whole scene for the first time, is you have to do the work before you can play around with this cool stuff like fasting.
Yeah.
So if you're hungry and you're dizzy and you're not concentrating well at work because you're trying to fast because someone told you to,
take care of yourself.
Go get
first.
a nutritious meal.
Yeah.
And then go on to pillar number 2.
Pillar number 2, move. Like
movement and physical fitness.
Yeah.
And we package that together for a very important reason.
Yeah. Well, because really one of the things that defines quality of life is movement, is access, is mobility. It's like, how do I get to, how do I go to Greece, for instance, to see the sights there? I have to move myself. I have to get myself, to the car and then drive to the airport. And so mobility becomes a major aspect of our enjoyment of life. And one of the things that we tend to lose over time is access to mobility. In some people, it manifests itself as being overweight and they can't move because they're overweight, or they have inflammation in their joints and it's painful to move. In the case of most athletes, over time, the range of motion contracts, and you get this, you can work within a certain sphere, but then you try to jump high or do something and you hurt yourself.
Why don't you go to court number 7 over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about, in the book, ways in which you can move that are just, they're not exercise, but it's movement. And it's like exercise is a form of movement, but just walking and just getting up from your desk and pacing while you're on a phone call, or sitting cross-legged on the floor, or kneeling sideways. Those are all forms of movement that put a little bit of a stress on the body and cause the body to respond in a positive way.
Didn't you do a scientific paper, actually publish a scientific paper on this topic?
Yes, so it's on archetypal rest postures. So the idea was, and it's a fascinating sort of side story on not just mobility, but on glucose tolerance and glucose uptake. So indigenous peoples who don't have a place to rest, they're not sitting on a chair, and our ancestors didn't have chairs, they didn't have beds and sofas and things like that to rest on. They rested on the ground. They were squatting or sitting cross-legged or sitting side saddle or sideways or legs out or legs behind or one side or another side. And in every one of these archetypal rest postures, there's a force being generated that's stretching some of the connective tissue, and in so doing, it's making that connective tissue better able to and the muscle surrounding it better able to take in glucose, to uptake glucose, which is a good thing. So, but again, we look at movement as what we tend to traditionally think of as walking or running or jogging or swimming or whatever. But then there are actual rest postures that factor into a type of movement, just by virtue of the fact that they're uncomfortable. And one of the sort of metrics of the archetypal rest posture is you find a posture, and after a few minutes it gets uncomfortable. Fine, you just switch to a different posture. And so one of the, we talked years ago about the stand-up desk. I got everyone in my office a stand-up desk 15 years ago. And so the whole office had stand-up desk. It was great. We even had treadmills, like underneath tread desks. So you had a treadmill underneath the stand-up desk. You could work, you could walk at 1.8 miles an hour, and people couldn't even tell that you were walking if you were on a phone call. But now along comes Katie Bowman, and Katie says, look, a stand-up desk isn't the answer, because it's, you're still stationary. You're still in one fixed position. You got to move around all during the day. So now the notion of the 1 foot high desk on the ground on an undulating surface, and you sit cross-legged or you sit side saddle or knees together, knees apart, whatever, and change positions all day long has kind of become the new ideal work environment, in my estimation.
Oh, it was such great news to me because I'm a fidgety guy anyway, and I'm working on a laptop, and I find myself moving to different parts of the house and sitting in the most comfortable couch position with 3 pillows. And I'm like, "Hey, Katie Bowman, is this okay?" She goes, "Heck yeah, it's okay if you get up and change it."
Change it again, yeah.
And that any posture the human can.
Yeah.
We're really good at contorting ourselves and even working like this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with this unless I do it for 7 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that movement objective, pretty simple. You coined another term, JFW, as your main objective in this category.
Just freaking walk, man. Just walk. Get out there and find. I mean, look. We're bipedal. We're a unique, fairly unique
You are,
among
okay,
the animal kingdom. How we don't fall over is beyond me. Like we're on. Like what can you set up on like a tripod? And if you take one leg of a tripod away, what happens? It falls over. So how we can even stand upright all day long? It's a marvel of engineering that our brain can balance us on every step. So we should take advantage of that, and balance becomes another part of this whole movement thing. We need to maintain balance as part of this strategy of staying mobile throughout our lives. Because one of the things that happens as we get older is we lose that sense of balance. But let's talk a little bit about sort of a new concept in working out these micro workouts.
You did that on a YouTube video and it went crazy in 1 week. So it's obviously a hot topic right now. Incredible.
So we assume that a workout in the gym, say, has to be minimum 45 minutes and maybe an hour is just about the right amount of time. And we have to sort of plot a strategy where we have to take a break and go to the gym and change and go to
Drive around looking for a close parking spot so you don't have to walk too far.
That's right. That's right. And even if we have a gym in our home, or we don't have a gym, we're just doing some exercise routine. The assumption is that it's got to be sort of start to finish, minimum 20, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, and it's 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. And that if we don't do that, then we're shortchanging ourselves. And what we've seen recently is that there's this notion that we could do small bits of work throughout the day and have it count just as much as if we compressed it all into one sweat session. And when I talk about sweat session, I'm saying, we generally change into our workout clothes because we're going to be getting hot and heated and sweat. Well, what if I just bang out 40 push-ups against this thing here, and I don't work up a sweat, but I got a nice little pump. It was a micro workout, and then I go back and work at my desk, my 1-foot-high desk on the ground, or my stand-up desk, or whatever it is, and then maybe I do 50 air squats a little bit later. Maybe tomorrow I'm just going to go do a quick set of sprints down the street, and I will change my clothes for that. I won't do it in my street shoes. But the idea that we can benefit from these smaller bouts of activity, these focused, concentrated bouts of activity, kind of opens the door up to a lot more opportunity to work out in a day or in a week without having to compartmentalize and having to create a schedule that says, geez, I'm not going to be anywhere near a gym for the next 3 days, so I'm either going to have to be less productive at work and find time, or I'm going to have to just not work out. Well, there's a middle ground there that works very well, and that is these micro workouts.
And for so many people that you see are too busy, too intimidated, maybe too stressed to take on a workout regimen, because these workouts are oftentimes turning into a chronic pattern. When you're going and joining the morning class 3 days a week at boot camp and they work your butt for 50 minutes, that can often be too much, and then you start to get counterproductive, where if we're saying, hey, get in your cube and go down and do some deep squats as far down as you can go, and if you can do 20 of those, I guarantee you when you get to 15, 16, 17, it ain't easy.
Yeah.
And then we look back 90 days later after you first watched the video, and you've been knocking out some of these deep squats, or I like to go to my pull-up bar, so when I go in the closet to get something or for whatever reason, I'll haul off one set. If I can do that a couple times a day, a few days a week, and then we go to the end of the month, same with the hex bar deadlift bar that's in my backyard by the garbage can. So when I throw the garbage away, I go hit that. I'm lifting 12,000 extra pounds a month without even thinking about it, because I like to throw garbage away. So then when we do go do a formal workout and we have fitness goals and all that, I feel like we're launching from this much higher platform just because we're throwing these things into daily life that anyone can do. There's no excuse not to do. There's a lot of excuses to go and work out at the gym.
Sure.
I understand that.
Yep.
Is there an excuse to not do 20 deep squats when we know it's going to increase our cognitive function, it's going to help our glucose uptake? In contrast, sitting for as little as 20 minutes, we have great research thrown in the book that even 20 minutes of stillness will show a measurable increase in insulin resistance, bad thing, and decrease glucose tolerance. So you're going to be bad at burning fat and dumb because you get less oxygen and blood circulation in the brain when you're still. And if you can just haul off some deep squats, everybody wins.
I think one of the main messages of the book is that it's a lot easier to achieve these sorts of goals than you thought, because it doesn't take the rigid, dogmatic attention to like an eating schedule, like we said, where you have to plug in your body weight to get how many 0.8 times grams of protein and how many grams of fat and what the breakdown is. No, I mean, all these things become an onerous task if you really wanted just to achieve sort of a freedom from having to think about and worry about what you eat, and a freedom to be able to be fit and healthy without having to think about, well, I have to go hire a trainer, I have to go to the gym, I have to do all these different things. I have to carve out a piece of my day, and like you say, I have to drive there, park, get dressed, do the workout, shower, come back, and what we're doing is we're saying, no, you don't really have to do any of that stuff. There are ways. If we talk about hacks, this is a hack. These are sort of ways in which we can achieve fitness and metabolic flexibility with the least amount of pain, suffering, sacrifice, discipline, calorie counting, portion control, and all those things we talk about.
Whew. That's pretty good news.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's almost too good for some people to believe.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I like my routine. I like to have my trainer. That's great. If you have your trainer, great. But most people don't have a trainer, and most people are caught between, not having a trainer and then not making time because they assume that they need to make all this time. And what we're saying is, no. If you can find literally 40 seconds here and 20 seconds there and a minute and a half there throughout the day, it'll not only have the same effect as you going to the gym, it'll improve your blood sugar, it'll improve your cognition, it'll improve your mood and your wellness. It's like I say, it's almost too good to be true, but it works. The science proves that it works.
So we have the metabolic flexibility. We have this objective to move more and be physically fit, which has now been described as so easy you don't even need a gym membership. This show sponsored by 24-hour, you don't need a gym membership.
Yeah.
Incredible. And if you find stuff that you like to do, and we all lead that pretty sedentary dominant lifestyle, then there is some rationale for getting in there and especially pushing that explosive end of the spectrum.
Yep.
And I see that as a big void as well, where you have these devoted fitness enthusiasts that go and jog 20, 30 miles a week, or they go to the gym and they do the stairs and they watch the whole debates on CNN, but a failure to put the body under maximum resistance load or all-out sprint. And again, the time efficiency here, to have this objective of once in a while, just push yourself hard, that's the most profound anti-aging hormonal response you can get.
So tell me about what you did this morning.
I went out and honored the great Eliud Kipchoge, one of the greatest athletic feats of all time. We're filming this show a couple days after this human ran a marathon in under 2 hours, which was beyond comprehension. It's a pace.
I never thought it would happen in my lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, since we know running and we know what a 4:34 mile feels like, and maybe back in the day we could bang 1 or 2, or you probably could do 6 of those when you were an elite level marathon runner with a lot of rest between. And this guy strung together 26 in a row. So I went out to the track and I ran a single lap and a couple half laps at his world record pace.
Yeah.
And it's very, very strenuous. So I had a sprint workout that lasted very short duration, but I pushed myself up to the high intensity.
That's my point. So you had a very short duration sprint
I just
workout.
wanted to plug
that will,
Kipchoge.
Of course, no, of course.
Yeah.
But that workout will serve you for at least another week.
Right.
In other words, you won't have to do another one like that for another week.
Unless I want to get injured.
Unless you want to get injured, or and it's not like you have to do them, but choosing to do it and then doing it brief but intense has so many benefits. It gives you that quick burst of adrenaline, followed by a pulse of testosterone and growth hormone. It's going to burn fat for the next couple of hours or a couple of days, in fact, because of the intensity of the workout, and it'll leave your muscles truly knackered enough that you won't want to be able to do anything like that for another 3 or 4 days, because this is this little micro tear thing where you stress the body enough that it comes back even stronger, right? Versus if you did it every couple of days, you'd stress it, and it would never come back stronger. It would just be accumulation of stresses. So that's the beauty of these intense, short sprint workouts, is they don't take a long time, and they're very, very effective.
Okay, we're halfway there.
Yeah.
And so far, it doesn't seem that hard.
I know.
Okay, so then...
And the hard stuff, by the way, that's the hard stuff. Now the rest of it's...
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You could say that the pillar number 3, mental flexibility, which when we were sitting down and planning out this project, I thought like this was maybe your greatest gift to humanity besides don't eat grains.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy now. Everybody can say
Yeah.
that. You were early on or first, and that was cool.
Right.
But I've been able to sit here on the ground floor and watch you live your life, and especially navigate these incredible complexity and stresses of building a thriving business and dealing with these spinning plates that would break a lesser man who maybe wasn't as physically fit, didn't have that work-life balance. And I observe you like going hard and being that competitive guy during the workday, and then we're sitting at lunch or at dinner, and you're like, you've had some classic quotes that have changed my life. One of them was, we had a huge problem with a book years ago, and I was, bitching and moaning and complaining and stressed, and you said, hey, it's just an effing book. And I'm like, oh, but wait, this is our breathing life and death matter here.
Yeah.
But nothing is that way.
Yeah.
I reference my sister a lot on podcasts because she's delivering babies. So when I talk to her on the phone when she's walking her dogs at night and she says she had a bad day, that means a bad day.
Yeah.
When someone wasn't given life, or who knows what tragic things happen, and she has to process that and go back and try again the next day.
Yeah.
But for most of us, that word pivot that came up as the essence of mental flexibility. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, no, I mean...
Mr. Pivot?
The concept of pivoting is just basically recognizing that there are always options, no matter what the original goal was. And so often in life, we'll be focused on a goal, we'll head down that path, we'll encounter obstacles. Very often those obstacles are worthy of overcoming. It's worth the effort to overcome the obstacle to get to the intended goal. Once in a while, you set a goal for yourself, and there are enough obstacles put in your way that you have to do a little bit of a calculation, and you say, is it worth my giving up, so much of my being to pursue this goal, or am I being shown by the universe that there might be an alternative route to take here? And I call that pivoting. So there have been many times in my life when I headed down a path. I'll use the example of I was a marathoner for 7 years, and I was a pretty decent marathoner. Finished 5th in the U.S. National Championships in 1980, qualified for the Olympic trials in 1980. But I got so badly injured just from the stress of training and from the diet, we know that now. And I kept thinking, there's something I have to do. I'm missing something. I've got to keep running. I've got to go to more doctors and figure out what it is that's wrong with me and fix it so that I can continue to go down that path and be the best runner I can. And there was a point at which I realized that no, this was not about me running more miles. This is about my body not being genetically capable of putting the miles in, and I just was never going to be the world-class runner. I'd done as much as I could, and so I pivoted and became a triathlete. And the next thing you know, I'm riding a bike, and I'm a better bike rider than I ever was a marathoner. I was able to take the fitness that I developed as a marathoner and immediately shift it into cycling and become a strong cyclist I learned how to swim. I was not a good swimmer, but I did triathlons for a couple of years, and I did fairly well in triathlons. I finished 4th at the Hawaii Ironman. There was a point after that when I said, okay, I've probably done all I'm going to do in the world of sports, and I could have stayed in and taught myself how to swim a little bit better and could have become a top athlete, but I knew enough about business and I knew enough about triathlon that I got into coaching and writing and administering the sport. Again, another pivot based on what life, put in front of me. And I didn't beat myself up because I never made it to the goal of, making the Olympic team. I didn't beat myself up because I didn't finish first at Ironman. I just was able to acknowledge where I was at that point in my life and take my strengths and shift sideways or pivot to another opportunity. And I was always aware of the opportunities to be able to do that. And I could just plot a very circuitous path through my life about how the my interest in coaching and administering triathlon led me to become the anti-doping commissioner for the sport of triathlon for around the world. That got me a job as a COO of a large vitamin company. I became interested in sports performance. Within that realm, I shifted to start my own company. I did my own company in supplements for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, I thought, I'm writing so much about food and I know so much about food, maybe I'll shift away from supplements and I'll start to do food. In retrospect, these were all perfect decisions. In real time, they feel like, wow, this goal isn't happening in front of me. I need to figure out, do I continue to beat myself and try to achieve that goal, or do I shift my attention a little bit and pivot to what the next thing might offer?
Well, I think most importantly is the dismal failures that come up are also opportunities to leverage, and then it leads you to something else, which leads you to something else. And so we all have the potential to tell these stories of failures and be stuck there. And so I think that term really is powerful in different ways. And one of them is, when you're down on the ground, you got to pivot the joint to get up and start walking away. Yeah. And so whether it's a wonderful success that you pivot into international fame and fortune, or whether it's a dismal failure, we're obligated to be that way in order to be healthy. That's why it made the cut into the book, basically.
Right. So resilience becomes a big factor with a lot of people. Are you resilient enough to withstand the failures? Are you resilient enough to learn from them and let them go and be willing to move on to the next thing with the same amount of enthusiasm and gusto that you approach the original goal? And if we look at the blue zones, and we look at the people, these centenarians, for instance, in some of the studies done over the years, you can find some commonalities in how they ate, a lot of commonalities in how they moved, but the single greatest singularity of commonalities among centenarians, people lived to be over 100, is they rolled with the punches. They took a massive, effective, stunning life event, the death of a child or the death of a spouse or the loss of a job, or these major life events, and they moved on. They didn't dwell too long. They grieved a little bit, but they didn't dwell too long, and they moved on to the next thing. They rolled with the punches. They were able to regroup after a massive failure or a massive loss and pivot and just look ahead to the next thing. And in so doing, not dwell in the past and not fear the future, but instead be present in the moment and make the moment count and be appreciative of the journey and the path.
I guess the opposite might be familiar to all of us at times, is to get stuck and to ruminate. This is the disease state. Yep. Of feeling depression is associated with thoughts about the past, and anxiety is associated with thoughts about the future. So you're stuck in a rut. You're telling your story about all the bad things that happened to you to get you to this rut. and then you have stress and anxiety holding you back from the future. So
well, because you're afraid it's going to happen again.
Right,
Yeah.
and back to Bruce Lipton and your thoughts manifesting your cellular function and
Yeah.
your reality, your destiny,
Yeah.
it probably will happen again.
Yeah.
And boy, just getting into this research and working on it and conversing with you back and forth about it and owning it for a long period of time, I got to raise my hand and say, yeah, I can reference a lot of that happening in my life where I was, I have this story going. I could have made it to the pros, but I messed up my shoulder at SC, and then I was third string, then fourth string, and it was the coach's fault. And everybody's got this kind of, blame
Narrative,
someone else.
yeah.
Narrative, yeah.
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 Look, my wife, Carrie, is involved in this sort of mindfulness, wellness strategy for several years now, and it looks at how do we achieve well-being? Well, how we achieve well-being is by letting go of the things that give us anxiety and pain and discomfort in our brain. We're so attached to the thoughts, again, about the past, regret about the past, wishing we could do it over again, or thinking fearful of the future. And ultimately, what she comes up with is that we are not broken as a result of what happened to us in the past, and we don't need to be fixed. We don't, as Lipton would say, if you keep running those tapes, then you're going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy of you might say, every day in every way I'm getting better and better and better, but the other part of your brain's going, no, you're lying to yourself. Forget that stuff. So you have to kind of let go of the old tapes and the old story. And some people have some horrible stories, but that is not what's happening right now. The only thing that's happening right now is what's going on in your brain thinking about the old stories. So if you change your way of thinking, if you stop ruminating and start enjoying the moment and focusing on the present and what needs to be done right now, the task at hand, you let go of all of that stuff, that stress, that anxiety, that depression, that fear, and all the things that I think so many people not only live with on a daily basis, but ultimately it accumulates and leads to advanced and accelerated aging.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're driving the bus, man. Change your self-perception about aging or whatever's happened to you. We'll put that on the category too.
Yep.
Rest and recovery.
Oh, yeah.
Pillar number 4. Oh, we almost forgot pillar number 4, rest and recovery. But I like how this conversation has flowed because we've hit some heavy stuff and we've accumulated a lot of content.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that one, especially if we're on this health quest and we're so excited and enthusiastic, like you described at the outset. You're sucking the bone marrow out of life until you're too tired to suck the bone marrow out of life. Then what? So we have rest and recovery. Yeah, choke on the bone. Yeah. Don't choke on the bone.
This is the thing that's probably the most ironic of all of the pillars is that people, they can't fathom the concept that taking it easy, relaxing, disconnecting from their electronic lives, their digital worlds, could possibly be beneficial because you gotta get the bread, go get the bread, and at some point, I forget when it was, maybe 15 years ago, when I sort of realized I no longer had to apologize for how much sleep I was getting at night. Because I used to think, Jesus, I'm getting like 7.5, 8, 9 hours of sleep. I can't tell anybody because they'll think I'm a slacker, And now I brag about it. Now, Jesus, I got 9 hours last night, and I'm raring to go, and I feel great, and I feel refreshed and rested. Rest and relaxation, rest and recovery. Recovery, that's the thing that people tend to overlook. If I do the work, I'll get stronger. No, you only get stronger from the recovery. You have to do the work, but it's the recovery that builds you back, and it's that period of your body repairing, relaxing, regenerating, renewing itself that's ultimately going to give you the results that you seek. You can't just keep doing the work, and grind. So
obviously sleep is the starting point here, but this definitely extends out beyond just optimizing your sleep. And we'll talk about some of those other, what rest and recovery means in other ways. But the starting point is sleep. Again, it's pretty simple. The solution is all in the book. We'll give you some tidbits here, but
Yeah.
I think it starts with minimizing artificial light and digital stimulation after dark, which is one of our most profound genetic disconnects. When the sun sets, for the past 2.5 million years, our ancestors pretty much wound down and went to sleep. And now we can brighten up our day and our year through around the clock with all kinds of...
No, that's where FOMO really comes into play, because it's still light out and people are still doing things and they're going to clubs and they're watching TV late at night and they're binge watching something, and so the fear of missing out on that is what keeps people up literally at night, because they think, well, if I go to bed now, I'll miss some kind of good time. Well, really, how are you defining a good time? Most people I know that stay out late and go to bars sort of regret that they stayed out that late. They didn't have that good a time. And the sort of binge watching television thing, I mean, I guess if that's your thing, I'd much prefer to read a good book, by a incandescent light just before going to bed. But I'm not, I don't judge people for doing that. What I am saying though is that in establishing a good sleep rhythm, a good sleep pattern, you tend to then optimize that rest and recovery. So for me, like if I go out late, I still get up at the same time every morning. So I can't shift my sleeping. I can't slide that scale over and go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and then wake up at 10:30 in the morning. That just doesn't happen to me. So I know that my sleep pattern is such that I'm going to wake up between 6:30 and 7:07, pretty much every morning. So I have to kind of plan my exit strategy the night before to be able to accommodate that.
Well, that's what the research shows as well, is the early hours of your sleep chunk are devoted to deep sleep, and then it becomes more REM sleep and less deep sleep. So you literally cannot make up for going to bed too late by sleeping in.
Right.
And then the idea of getting up around the same time every day is also validated. This is going to help you with your circadian rhythm and getting that direct exposure to sunlight, getting your eyeballs touching right on the sun near sunrise is setting yourself up for that melatonin release when the sun sets, and that nice graceful transition. So I think messing it up with the digital devices is the big one. That's an easy fix, really. The payoff is
one of the
wonderful.
tough ones is travel. I mean, if you cross 6 time zones, you may need to. I use melatonin when I travel, so I reset. I try to reset when I do that. But that to me is the one area that I find most stressful to people in general is shifting time zones on a regular basis like that.
Incredibly stressful. You're spiking the stress hormones to the extent that I've made mistakes with training because I wake up the next morning in Florida and I feel great and I go out and I do a hard workout because I'm bathed in these stress hormones due to the extensive stress of jet travel. So we kind of have to plan and realize what it feels like to be in an overly stressful state. And sometimes you feel great and you're full of energy and you're staying up late at night because the eyeballs are getting blasted with artificial light, prompting the stress hormones. So you'll feel fine and you're finishing your emails and you're feeling really good because your inbox is almost empty, but it's sort of and
then you can't sleep. You can't fall asleep for an hour.
And then you feel like hell the next morning. So
and then you worry about not sleeping, which keeps you up even longer.
Oh, mercy. So then we have that sleep chunk, and then the idea of resting and recovering, obviously applying to your workouts. And you've talked so much about the dangers of chronic cardio, the demise you saved yourself from by ending your endurance career early, and I think the widespread abuse of fitness, and I think the marketing message too, that no pain, no gain still thrives in the group training aspects and the gyms and all that stuff.
Look, how it really hit home for me was when I was coaching you, and I'd already been retired for probably 6 years from competition. I did my last race in 82, and then I started training you guys in like 88, I think.
We were a team of professional triathletes, so this guy would tag along.
And I would coach and I would tag along, but you remember I could keep up with you on a lot of the rides. And not every ride, and that was the key, because once in a while I would get into a ride with you guys, and I would stay with you.
Or push the pace.
Or push the pace,
What's this guy doing?
Right.
You know?
But because I took the next 4 days off,
right.
And you didn't, you trained every single day, I could come back stronger and do it again and again and again. Now, I couldn't put the workload, that weekly workload in, but I could do the individual workouts once in a while. And to me, that was an indicator of my fitness. I didn't need to be doing it every single day, but if I at the age of 38 in those days, could hang with you 22-year-olds and 24-year-olds, on a world-class, endurance athletes, then that was an indicator that I had the kind of fitness that I wanted for myself without beating myself up, and that was powerful for me, because then even a year or two later I could enter a race as an age grouper and finish in the top category among the pros in duathlon, for instance. So it was clear to me that this was not about how much can you beat yourself up. This was about how much can you rest and get away with it. And that was really to me, that sealed the deal in terms of, okay, we got to figure out what it is that causes the body to stress itself enough. But most importantly, we have to figure out how to give it enough rest and nutrition to recover and come back stronger than it was before.
It's a tough one for a goal-oriented, driven, accomplished person to try to embrace that slowing down will make you go
feel guilty
faster.
when you take a day off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember our coaching calls. We'd strategize my race schedule and my training and report back. And every time you ended the call with, remember, trust. And that was the final comment, because it required so much trust for me to back off and slow down and throw those rest days in. That was sort of your revelation that you could still go hard on your hard day. And what else matters in terms of your fitness adaptability? What can you do on your best day? We're not saying what can you do on your worst day. No.
Or on your average day.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the message to the fitness community, and now these wonderful recovery style workouts are coming into popularity. People like Joel Jamieson, Dr. Craig Marker conveying the importance of just taking longer rest intervals, for example, have transformed my sprint workouts. I don't need to step back on the starting line and show how tough I am with my beeper going, that I'm going every 30 seconds.
Or as soon as your heart gets from 180 back down to 140, go again.
I walk around and make social media posts of my workout in progress and take my time, and then I deliver a high quality explosive performance. This is high intensity repeat training instead of high intensity interval training, the exhaustive workout, and you recover faster. So you can do more of them and continue to build without that
people are, by the way, people are doing that in the gym, in the weight room too. So they're taking longer rest between sets in the weight room and able to do more and do it, recover faster and get better gains as a result of doing that too.
So I think the final thing to talk about in this category would be something that's new and exciting for humans in the last 20 years. Is this hyperconnectivity and the desperate need to take a break from that and apply extreme discipline to our tech habits.
I get sometimes accused of being too much caught up in the paleo-centric world and the anthropological historical human experience, but basically we are wired to be in small, close-knit communities. We talked in Primal Connection about the Dunbar's number, probably 12 close people, and then maybe at most 150 people that we're connected with in our lives. And this was through millions of years of human evolution. All of a sudden now we're connected with, I'm limited to 5,000 Facebook friends, right? And I have, 77,000 Instagram people, and it's crazy how we view that as being connected. And yes, it's connected in the sense of plugging a plug into a socket. You're connected, and you can get a shock doing that. So I can get shocked by being connected to all these people. But real connection is eyeball to eyeball, sharing conversation, proximity, skin contact. That's real connection. And we not only are we losing that, but we see it in young people today, how uncomfortable they are in close groups. I mean, I'll go to some young people's homes and see 8 people sitting around a living room, all literally not just texting other people, texting each other while they're sitting there, not talking to each other. It's crazy. So I would love to see people, get a firm grip, a handle on where the line is between being an effective communicator because you're a digital marketer and you have people that you want to share your news with, versus having a real close contact with somebody and having this kind of close human connection that we all crave. That's really an essential part of our being, and yet we've lost. And we have some research again in the book about if you talk about longevity studies, it's the closeness. Like men who are married and in good marriages live like 12 years longer than men who are not.
There's another hack for you.
Yeah. My wife sent me something the other day about people with pets who have connection to pets live longer than people who don't. So there's something about that physical connection that we cannot overlook if we claim that we want to live a longer, happier, more productive life.
The Okinawans, the island of Japan, which has long been lauded for the highest longevity, the females there have the longest life expectancy of any group in the world, over 90, so kicking USA butt by 7 years or something.
Yeah.
And they have this concept called ikigai, which is the importance of social community and social networking, and they have networking socially.
In the old
Someone
days.
stole my term.
Yeah.
But they meet for tea in the afternoon, and they have these leisurely occasions where there's no huge agenda. Maybe they're not even playing bingo. Like, at least you're going to bingo, nothing wrong with that. But they just connect, and they form these small groups of 4 people usually for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So when they're little kids in kindergarten, they group them up, and they stay together for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of longevity statistics, native Okinawans who leave the island and go off to live their lives elsewhere have a 20-year reduction in life expectancy.
Yeah.
And they eat their healthy seaweed and all that, but I think the researchers think
A lot to be said for the connection.
the most profound thing is their social fabric there.
Right.
Then we take a deep breath, and then we pound you with the 21-day biological clock reset. What better way for a book to end or a podcast?
Yeah. No, the 21-day reset is basically we hold your hand through 21.
It's sort of like we squeeze your hand.
Yeah, well, whatever.
We designed it to be tough.
We lead you. We lead you through some exercises, if you will, some challenges, some tasks that are contemplated to put you on this path of metabolic flexibility, movement, and physical fitness, mental flexibility.
Well, it's each day. We have there's 4 pillars, right?
Yeah.
So each day you have an assignment in each one.
Yeah.
And it's designed to be pretty tough and to make a sincere commitment here, because we're talking about life change, life transformation. It's not easy. So don't worry, you do have to go into the chest freezer cold plunge like I do every morning. That's mandatory part of the thing. But actually, seriously, it's exploring different things.
Yeah.
So one of them might be cold exposure. It's a lot of great research. It's a great
Everybody
way to
I
wake
have
up.
that visits me or that lives in my building in Miami has done the cold plunge with me, and people are like they love it, and they're a little bit afraid of it, but once they do it, they're like, oh my God, that was the most amazing experience.
Especially in Miami.
Yeah.
How could you live without it?
Yeah.
Lake Tahoe, I'm not so sure I need one now that I got a bigger cold plunge out there, which I intend to swim in every single day.
Right.
But you dabble in this, you dabble in that. If cold showers aren't your thing, or you're not going to invest in a chest freezer after your first thing, that's fine, because after 21 days, you've had sort of this intensive retreat experience where you can pick and choose, because we're not forceful people. Pick and choose what works for you, but carry it on for forever.
Yep.
And great recipes too, from leading pack of culinary chefs and brilliant people in the kitchen. And I think you should talk about that too, because you made the decision, since you're such a connoisseur, you're the Primal Kitchen guy, he likes to eat all these delicious things, so we just put it out there and said, what do you got? And so the collection of recipes is kind of eclectic, because we didn't all develop them ourselves or with our same research team. And
but it's sort of greatest hits. It's like of the favorite foods. I mean, like I say, never put anything in your mouth that doesn't taste great, right? And that's one of the reasons that we have these recipes in there. They've been tested and they taste fabulous.
The name of the book is Keto for Life. Go grab it. Thank you, Mark Sisson.
Thank you, Brad.